Hey folks, just a warning that this episode contains in-depth descriptions of bodily functions. So if you're sitting down for a meal, you might want to consider starting it at a different time. But up to you. All right, that's it. Enjoy. When something difficult happens to our bodies, we want to know exactly what went wrong. I think that's frustrating for a lot of people who have IBS or irritable bowel syndrome because you know that there's something wrong with your digestive system, but doctors can't really pinpoint exactly what it is. When I describe my own IBS, most of the time what I'm talking about is a thing that I have started calling transit anxiety. So whenever I'm in transit from one place to another, like literally any time that I leave my house, I'm in this state where I kind of have the feeling that I have to poop, and I'm constantly negotiating how urgently I have to do that. You may be gathering that I'm on a subway. That's because this is where this anxiety happens the most and where it happens the worst. The New York City transit system is pretty erratic, and for me this exacerbates this anxiety. I'm asking myself all these questions. When is the train gonna come? How long will it be to the next stop? Are we gonna be stuck in between platforms? Can I make it all the way there? Usually it's okay. Like I make it to my stop. But it only takes one time where I don't make it for the fear of not making it to last a pretty long time after that. In talking about this, thinking about this, I've realized that I'm kind of nervous to go anywhere. It's a bummer of a sentence to say. I mean, it's still worth it to venture out into the world. It just sucks to deal with this and not really have any answers. This week, we're going to be talking about a different type of transit anxiety. Something that me and a couple friends have wanted answers about for a really, really long time. Welcome to Someone's in Here, a podcast where we share stories about going to the bathroom. I'm your host, Ben Castleman. Thank you so much for tuning in. There are times in our lives when our bodies do something that we didn't realize was possible. When I was pretty young, my parents came home, and the babysitter told them that I had peed black. I know, pretty gross. This was surprising and frightening for all of us. It turned out I had undetected strep for about a month. And the strep had affected my kidneys. But the most seemingly impossible thing that I've ever witnessed the human body do happened to my friend Max. It happened one night at the end of our freshman year of college. And while it was a very eventful night with a lot of twists and turns, the impossible thing that Max, myself, and one other friend witnessed. It all hinges around a theory that we developed about that night. A theory that we've wondered about ever since Max's body did the seemingly impossible 1 decade ago.
I couldn't tell you anything about June 6th before arriving in downtown Chicago.
That is Max. At that point, we had been going to school together since 7th grade. By the time we were freshmen in college, we had become somewhat inseparable.
So this night was the end of our freshman year. We were going to downtown Chicago with three of our, at the time, very close friends, Eric, Danny, and Scott. Scott and Eric are identical twins. And we are going with Scott and Eric's parents to an incredibly nice steakhouse dinner. And it's always a treat when, you got college friends' parents in town and you get selected to be in the nice dinner crew. Mm-hmm. So I think, I probably was pretty excited.
The only people that I knew who were more inseparable than Max and I were my roommate Eric and his identical twin Scott. These were two 6 feet, 200-pound club hockey players. Think the Winklevoss twins, but goofier. Their parents, Donna and Gordon, or as we called him, Gordo, were in town.
I would say you and I definitely are the least alpha of any of these, of anybody at that table, Donna included. We're like certainly the smallest and the least strong, and we're probably bigger than Donna. But yeah, least alpha, so it's just like an eating contest on some level. Like totally gluttonous, everybody ordering as much as they could. Obviously steaks, the very rich sides, like probably a cream spinach, a mac and cheese, a mashed potato.
Everyone was having a great time, getting free steaks as a freshman in college, not to mention probably sneaking a drink or two. But at some point during the meal, while the rest of us were living it up, things started to take a turn. When do you remember feeling that something was wrong?
I think as soon as we stopped eating. This is a time in my life where I was pooping a lot and pooping remarkably fast. I think if anyone were to say anything about how I pooped back then, it was that like basically as soon as the check hits the table, if not before, I'm ready to go.
Here at Someone's In Here, we take shit seriously. With a story of this magnitude and intrigue, we're going to have to get a lot of voices involved. And we're going to do fact checks. We reached out to Amon Jones, Max's freshman year roommate, to corroborate his story.
What's good? Background about Max pooping. I have to say I haven't gotten one of these calls in a while.
The question is, if you were to say anything about how Max pooped back around freshman year, what would it be?
I feel like the few times we did eat together, I feel like he had to go pretty quickly after eating.
Bingo. Max's story checks out.
Like I can see us sitting at like the cafeteria tables essentially, and soon after finishing our meal, he's running to the bathroom. I think that may have happened on a couple occasions, and maybe you remember it differently, but that's what I recall.
Thanks, Amon. That's what we recall, too.
Certainly before the check is paid, no joke, I will poop 3 to 4 times. Like, I'll get up, walk to the bathroom, poop, feel like it's done, come back, and almost immediately turn around.
How does that feel?
It feels really bad. And this is one of the ones where there's no end in sight. Like, the poops are not decreasing in urgency or size.
So that was what it was like from Max's perspective. Let's check in with the rest of the table.
So let me take you back to June 6, 2013.
Fuck yeah, let's do it. Who was president?
I believe that was Barack.
The Obama administration. I'm in the right headspace.
These voices are the aforementioned twins, Scott and Eric. It might be hard to tell them apart on the tape, but that's always true. They're identical.
I just think I remember Max being up from the table like at least half the meal. It was like every 10 minutes he would get up. Like more than the normal, like being on the bathroom, like maybe once, maybe twice. But I think he was doing a good job. Like he wasn't letting the table know what was going on. Yeah, I mean, he was like keeping his business to himself, if I remember correctly.
The number one memory I have of this period is that this is a fancy steakhouse with a bathroom attendant. So I'm walking past this man 4 times and he can hear everything and it smells really, really bad.
Did he say anything to you?
I think he might have said, "Let me get a courtesy flush." Those might have been his exact words.
The bathroom attendant goes, "Can I get a courtesy flush, please?"
As our time in the restaurant comes to a close, I have to introduce you to someone. It took some effort, but I got a gastroenterologist to comment on my friend Max's decade-old poop story. She's going to help us demystify the rest of the night.
Hi, I'm Victoria Garland. I'm a gastroenterologist in New York City, and I'm happy to be here today to unravel the mystery.
What could cause a poop to be so smelly that even someone who works in a bathroom finds the smell offensive?
Well, first of all, I feel very badly for the bathroom attendant who, listened to everything. And then, of course, he's going to smell it. So, stool in general has a kind of foul odor. It's because it's composed of the food you eat, so the undigested food, and then the microbes that are in the gut. So the bacteria, the viruses,
Basically, if I'm hearing you right, sometimes the smell can be caused by like undigested food. Or like food that was not processed as much as other food.
Yeah, that's what stool is. Stool is undigested food. So that's going to have an odor. Bacteria have an odor. And different bacteria are going to lead to different odors. When they break down food, it causes gas to be released. Eggs, meat, dairy, garlic can have a more foul smell, but I'm sure if he's been going to the bathroom 4 times in 30 minutes, the attendant was probably getting a little bit disturbed or frustrated.
Fatigued.
And wanted a courtesy flush.
We were eating at a restaurant called Tavern on Rush, which has since closed. A tough blow for anyone in downtown Chicago looking for some delicious, creamy sides. The twins were staying in the city with their parents, but Max, Danny, and I had about a 40-minute bus ride on a university-run shuttle ahead of us.
So 30 minutes and 4 poops-ish later, we walked to the intercampus shuttle. Probably like a 15-minute walk, almost definitely catching the last shuttle back, and I'm stressed. Like, it is not a pleasant walk. I am not confident in my ability to make it to this intercampus shuttle. That's not just like, ooh, I think I might have to poop, kind of like anxiety pain. It's like, I have to poop really badly right now.
Yeah.
As soon as we leave the restaurant, I'm like, I need to go again.
I remember you being visibly sick.
Yeah. I think at this point, there might be some light to heavy clutching of my stomach going on.
Obviously, I'm sympathetic to this feeling. And I remember being like, are you okay? Like, are you going to make it?
I thought I could make it. Before that point, I don't think I had shit myself in my adult life or in my young adult life. The last time before that I can remember pooping myself was like kind of a half pooping myself in a Blockbuster video when I was probably 11.
Eventually, the bus comes, and Max, Danny, and I get on.
What happened next is we go to the very back of the bus. I need to be far away from human beings. In my mind, after we sit down, there's maybe like a minute or two where it's eye of the storm kind of thing and like eerily calm, perhaps. And I'm just legitimately trying to zone in and like stay cool. And then the pain ratchets up and I'm in a bad spot.
Max just starts turning like green and squirming in the back of the shuttle. And we're like, dude.
That's Danny, the only other person to witness the shocking events of that night on the bus. And I do say events, plural, because even though only one theory was developed about this night, we have more than a few mysteries.
And we're like, dude, are you okay? And he's like, I don't feel very good. Like, something's not right. And we're like, what's wrong? I think he was like sitting on his hands and rocking in the back.
My eyes close. I grab my penis as hard as I can because like I both need to like add more stimulus and also take away the stimulus of being able to see stuff so that I'm confusing my body into not knowing what's going on so my body doesn't focus on how freakishly bad I have to poop.
That's when I thought he's like hemming this up. Like, there's no way this is this bad.
I'm still kind of mystified at like what feeling led to that.
Everything I was doing on the bus was like, I don't have any societally acceptable means of relief available to me. So I'm pulling out anything I can think of to mitigate the pain, distract my mind, because it hurt so badly. Most pain I'd ever been in my life, I think, up until that point, for sure.
Oh my God.
It's common, right? It's a common thing you do if you're having pain one place, stimulate nerves in another place to kind of decrease that sensation.
Right. So in your mind, grabbing your crotch in this situation is a common thing to do.
Grabbing your crotch in this situation, maybe not so much, but maybe people will like pinch themselves or do something that is a little bit uncomfortable.
What is someone who is in this state up against? Like, what is happening physically when someone is trying to hold in a poop?
It's a lot of pressure there. So you have the thing that controls defecation. There's two sets of muscles, the internal and the external sphincters. So what first happens is a stool passes the rectum and it passes the internal sphincter, which automatically kind of opens. And then you start to feel pressure, and there's nerve fibers there that sense that pressure, that urge to defecate. The internal sphincter is involuntary, so you don't have control over it. Fortunately, we have the voluntary set of muscles, the external sphincter, which controls holding it in until it's the appropriate time to use the bathroom.
What causes the pain in this process?
I think the pain is just pressure that you're feeling, and that tightness and trying to hold everything in. The muscles are cramping down, bearing down. Our bodies have been designed that when we feel that sense, you want to relax and have a bowel movement. And when you try to fight the natural urge, it's going to be uncomfortable, especially if you're doing it for the entirety of a bus trip.
Would your best guess be that most of the pain is occurring in the external sphincter?
It's occurring in the anus.
The psychology around the dick grab changes my perspective of this.
What did you think I was doing?
It certainly looked involuntary.
Like a spasm.
So I assumed it was a pain in that area. What you're describing sounds way more painful, that you purposely grabbed your crotch to distract from other pain.
Yeah. That's what was happening. My next idea for pain mitigation was definitely put in my head from Civil War movies where they bite down on a piece of wood while getting some janky 1800s surgery.
I think you were can you get me a brochure? And I was had no idea why, but I was this man knows what he needs right now.
Yeah, don't second guess.
And he started biting it or something. Then he yeah, I remember that now. That definitely jogged my memory. He started biting it like it was a Civil War movie where they're about to amputate his leg or something. He was and he's biting on the leather, but he was doing it with the brochure.
This is Amon again, Max's freshman year roommate. We're going to need him to add some context in a second, so I thought I might as well include his reaction to the strategy of crumpling up a bus route brochure and biting down on it.
Bro. Dude, what was this man going through? What did he order on the menu?
I don't know why that would work, but that was my next thought.
I decided to dive deeper into Max's decision and reach out to the National Museum of Civil War Medicine. They declined an invitation to be on the podcast, but their employee Terry did respond to me by email, and I got my friend Ryder to read some of his reply.
Dear Ben Castleman, thank you for your inquiry concerning biting on a stick. This is indeed from the movies and not from the real Civil War. Our museum is constantly fighting against the bite the bullet myth, or stick, or leather strap. Recently, we did a complete review of the primary sources in our collection to find any mention of bitten bullets. We found absolutely no contemporary references to biting the bullet, Anesthesia was in widespread use during the war, and placing a bullet between the teeth of a prone man who is likely to scream in pain makes no sense at all. In light of the fact that we constantly battle this myth, I will have to decline being part of your podcast. No one should be perpetuating this Hollywood myth. Thank you again for your interest. Sincerely, Terry Reimer, National Museum of Civil War Medicine.
I mean, on a lot of levels, it's a weird move. Because even if you're like mashing it up, it's not providing any resistance. You're not really biting down on anything but your own teeth. But I was not in the state of mind to be thinking through those types of decisions.
At this point in the bus ride, Max started looking nauseous and covering his mouth with his hand. But because of a prank that Max and I would play our freshman year, I couldn't tell if he was actually nauseous or just joking around. Do you remember some of the things me and you used to do at parties to fuck around with people?
Yeah, so in college, you and I definitely, in a way that was totally hilarious, pretended to fake throw up in the middle of crowded parties. And people would freak out, and everyone would have a good laugh.
Bro, he used to do a fake throw-up thing all the time, so I would have thought he was just joking.
Yes, dude. We did that, me and Max both, like, all the time.
Yes, that I remember vividly and distinctly.
We had been doing that so much and not throwing up that I was like, maybe Max is fine. Like, he's doing this joke of his.
He kind of like retched towards me, and I was just, I kind of jumped and ran away, as one would do. And so we were kind of making a scene at the back.
And
then I throw up so bad. And then I throw up something that has never, ever come out of my body before or after.
what do you mean? What does that mean?
I think at some point the poop needed an escape valve, and I was like so dead set on it not coming out of my butt that it somehow came out of my mouth. Poop was going the wrong way up out of my body.
The poop went there.
I think it somehow came out of my mouth. And it's thick and green and absolutely horrendous smelling.
Unbelievable. And there is the theory that Max was holding in his poop with so much vigor that it changed directions and came up out of his mouth. We know it sounds insane, but if you had just seen someone poop 4 times in the restaurant, clutch his stomach as we walked to the bus, close his eyes, rock back and forth, jump up and grab his crotch, and try to bite down on a paper brochure to help mitigate his pain, is it so far-fetched that just one more remarkable thing happened to Max's body that night? We are going to dig way deeper into this theory. But for now, Max, Danny, and I, we're still on the bus.
People on the bus are panicking. Which makes it just adds to the intensity of the moment. You and Danny are beside me and you leap up and scream. I know there's another guy on the bus who's like horrified and gets up, walks as far away from us as possible, which means like essentially standing next to the driver. Every inch matters in terms of how far away from this like thick, smelly pile of green vomit.
I was very confused because we kind of all ate and drank relatively similar things at that dinner.
I remember our running theory at the time was that he was holding in his poop so ferociously that it
came out his mouth. I think we talked about this or something at one point. Yeah.
And all the times I've told this story to people, and then I say the part where it's like, essentially I had to poop so bad that I threw up poop. People would be like, that's not a real thing, you just threw up. And I get why they would say that, because it doesn't seem like a real thing to me, but I know that it was not throwing up. I know that I threw up poop. I want it on the record that it's a real thing that happened. That it wasn't me being dramatic about just throwing up, like I for real threw up poop, and that's something that a doctor would say.
I will investigate that for sure.
That's all I need.
Okay, welcome back. So the last time we talked, you asked one thing of me, and that was to get a doctor on the record who could back up your story. I said I would investigate, and I did get a doctor to comment. But first, how you feeling about this?
I'm very excited to, I guess, have this written in the history books once and for all.
Do you feel like there are stakes to this moment?
Maybe I should. I kind of more just want closure for myself. You know, it's like a curiosity of mine.
All right, well, we'll see if you get closure.
The closure that I'm looking for?
Yeah. Here we go. And Max really feels like what happened was he was trying so hard to prevent the poop from coming out of his butt that it just needed an escape valve and came out of his mouth. So basically he threw up poop. Is this in any way possible?
It is possible that you can vomit stool. It has been reported. But this would really only occur in somebody who has some sort of an underlying condition with an abnormal anatomy.
She doesn't know me.
Without an intestinal obstruction, I think it would be an incredibly long path for the food to travel. So things that could have caused it if there was like some sort of an obstruction, like a mass or a stricture, but he's not somebody who has that. So I don't really see how that would be possible.
You put your arms out as if...
Well, she said it's possible.
She said it's possible.
So I was celebrating that moment because that it is possible.
Uh-huh.
She's saying it's unlikely. Very unlikely, even possibly. Mm-hmm. But not impossible. In fact, possible.
Mm-hmm. It has been reported.
I feel like that's all the affirmation that I personally needed. Just to know that it can happen. Is that the whole clip?
No. She has an alternate theory.
I would love to hear her alternate theory. Not sure I'm going to believe it, but I'm happy to hear her out.
But what it sounds to me like is he was vomiting bile. So bile is green and it's very foul tasting, and it would be a different vomit than vomit that has a lot of food in it. So that's probably what he was vomiting. It is.
I feel like there's no way it was so much.
Some of the things that she said about bile seem
foul smelling and tasting. And green. But it was so thick.
Do you feel attacked, misrepresented?
No, I guess I am kind of pushing back on this medical professional a little bit. Mm-hmm. But that's just because none of it is definitive, what she's saying, you know?
Right. Yeah, I mean...
I want her to say, that kid threw up bile.
It's very much, that's how, like, doctors speak. And also, this was a decade ago.
Damn.
But I do feel like if you are feeling misrepresented, hopefully I can speak to that in this next part.
Wow.
I don't know. Let's see if you think she's convinced of a theory. So when I interviewed him, Max said, quote, "I know I threw up poop." Are you denying his lived experience, number one? And number two, what could like cause him to have such a strong feeling that that's what was happening in his body?
Listen, everything is possible, but it is incredibly unlikely. Green, foul-tasting vomit is bile. And bile is a very unpleasant thing to throw up. So it may be different than anything that he had experienced before. So that's probably what it was.
Great question, first of all. Everything is possible.
A little more convinced there.
Yeah, she's pretty definitive on that one. But see, here's where I'm at, because like I've thrown up bile before.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But that was not my experience of throwing up the poop, you know?
Yeah, I am much less familiar with bile than
I seem to be.
You are.
Gotta get a couple more people on the record here. All my bile heads stand up.
Okay.
But I don't know what to tell him. If he firmly believes that that's what happened, there's probably no convincing him elsewise.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's rule out that he threw up poop.
Wow.
Yeah,
leading question by you, though.
let's rule that out.
So if it wasn't poop going out the wrong end. It is still possible that the intensity with which he was holding in his poop led to him throwing up.
It's possible. But if I had to put my money on it, he probably had something like food poisoning. From what it sounds like, he had some sort of a gastroenteritis. There was some sort of infection or inflammatory process. He maybe had some food poisoning, and it was affecting him at both ends. That's what I think is the most likely, but I feel bad for him.
He's doing okay. I think he was in a crazy amount of pain. I think like what he describes is maybe the most pain he had been in up until that point. But
it's really possible that the pain was what triggered the vomiting.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes pain can just make you so nauseous that you throw up.
Yeah.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, I think you are feeling attacked.
Yeah, a little bit.
But I can hear and see how it kind of now seems like a debate.
Between me and a medical professional? Yeah.
But you know what happened to you?
Yeah.
Did anything she said resonate with you?
That I could have been in so much pain that I threw up seems possible. There's just like an absolutely massive, outstanding question about the thickness. Could it be that much? Could it be that thick? That would be my next question.
It was not a negligible amount.
No, substantive.
Okay.
And then if she says it could be tons of it and it'd be mad thick, I threw up bile, not poop. I'm saying that on this podcast.
We can inquire about the thickness.
Yeah.
Doctors are experts on the human body, but there's no one who knows an individual body better than the person who is living in it. Sometimes we'll feel pain. Doctors won't give us the answers we're looking for, and this can feel very invalidating. That's not exactly what's happening here, but I think when you've had such a firmly held belief for such a long time, it can still be confusing to hear a different theory. I know that what I saw and what Max felt, it can't be an easily explainable thing. So I reached back out to Dr. Garland. Welcome back. Thank you for...
Well, thanks for having me.
Of course. So I played Max our last interview, and we had a couple of follow-up questions about bile. Like, how common is it to throw up bile?
It's decently common.
So people that have thrown up bile would probably be pretty good at identifying it if they like threw it up again, right?
I think so.
Okay. So he feels like it's usually a small amount, and then what he threw up was like a pretty large amount and was thicker than normal vomit. So to use Max's words, by itself, bile can't be mad thick, and there can't be tons of it.
No, generally no. It's not super thick, and there's only so much that, you would have. But again, if he was just eating a really fatty, heavy meal, and he may have released a lot of bile to help break that down, and it might have started to mix with the food content that was in his upper portion of his intestines, maybe that's kind of what started to come up.
Okay, so if he had like some food content and then that mixed with the bile, would that concoction like be potentially something that he had never thrown up before?
Yeah, it could change the color of his vomit. And it probably would, again, have a very distinctly foul taste to it. As I said, he probably had more bile released after a large steak dinner. And so that's why he just had a lot more than what he was expecting.
Okay. Is there any like positive case to make? Like, could you potentially make the strongest case that you're comfortable with that he maybe did throw a poop? And then I'll edit this question out.
I still think it is much less likely that he vomited like fecal material, because the transit time is incredibly long. So it wouldn't be feasible for the solid contents to just track up that and come out in one go.
Okay. On June 6th of 2013, Max threw up a concoction of bile, steak, and creamy sides.
Correct.
All right. Those were the follow-up questions. I'm wondering.
Yeah.
Wow, what a good soundbite. I mean, it's pretty conclusive, I feel.
Okay. So you're happy with like her vigor, or like how convinced she is?
Yeah, I think she's got the kind of relaxed confidence of someone who really knows that they're correct about what they're talking about.
Max, what did you throw up that day?
I think I threw up a mix of bile, delicious steak, and creamy sides.
Damn, something in what she just said really did it for you.
I think that the introduction of the idea that bile can mix with food contents to produce something unbile-like is new, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So that got me. That works. That works. That's what happened.
Why do you think you were clinging so hard to the way we originally told this story?
I mean, it's more funny that way. It's better that way. Better story, crazier circumstance.
Is there any element of like, I went through a tough thing, like you went through the most pain you had ever been in up to that point, and you were like, if I get something out of it, it's not that bad?
I buy that. I think that's part of like wanting it to have a crazy story about it. It's been a few years since that moment, so it's hard to say. But I think it's like, whoa, this crazy thing happened to me, and that's why I was going so nuts on the bus. It's easier to do that when you threw up poop than when you threw up a mix of bile and delicious steak and creamy sides.
I get that impulse.
Yeah. Thanks for empathizing.
We have a new theory for what happened on June 6th of 2013. Sometimes our guts go nuts on a bus, and just that can be enough for a funny, memorable story. And maybe it's not as one in a million as throwing up poop, but it's still our story. And every story has an ending. What we do know for sure is something came out of Max's mouth. Inter-campus shuttle patrons were panicking, and 3 college freshmen had to figure out what to do.
And like pulled the emergency stop thing of the Evanston shuttle and just bailed out of the thing, and we're like cracking up chasing after him, and he runs into this like complete dive bar like by the Loyola campus and like beelines to the bathroom.
In my mind, I'd poop for 20 minutes continuously. But
Oh my God. Even after at least 4 times pooping and you throwing up,
still,
this is it.
it's still like a big poop that is like, it's not over quick either. I'm like having to poop for a long time. I have to sit there for a long time. Certainly the most important poop I've ever taken.
Interesting. You mean by urgency?
For sure, most urgent poop, most important poop, most necessary poop. Once I'm done pooping in this liquor store dive bar combination, it's past. Like, I don't feel good. I still feel bad. I feel nauseous. And I feel freaked out that this thing just happened to me, but I don't have to poop anymore.
That's great.
Yeah.
Light at the end of the tunnel.
I feel like I remember him saying like right after he went to the bar, he was like, "Oh, I'm all better now." Like he came back and was like, "Oh, I'm all fine." Like I feel like I remember being that. I was just like, "What the hell is going on?" So
It's just like, why did that happen? Why? I think it was like the pain was so intense. It was all so frantic and anxiety inducing that you're like a little shell shocked. And then I think a little bit of the fear is like, damn, that can happen to me. Like I can have to poop so bad that my body just like explodes. You then think about it and you're like, all right, it's not unlikely that I'll have to poop and have to get on a bus again in my life. Like I don't ever want to do that again. That was so painful.
And nothing like that actually ever happened since then, correct?
No, nothing like that ever happened ever again. Thankfully. Knock on wood.
I think this was brave.
Thank you.
There are times in our lives when we realize we're battling against our own body. When these moments come, it's all about how we respond. will we fold like a bus brochure in a misinformed man's mouth? Or will we grab our most difficult moments by the groin? We try to understand our bodies. Sometimes we will form stories to help explain these mysteries, or maybe we'll turn to doctors as a courtesy to ourselves. But the fact that we, as humans, can take our most painful memories and make them into laughter, isn't that the best medicine? Life will throw you surprises, things that you never even knew were possible. If we can take these moments and share them with a friend, you too might look back and wonder how it all came out the other end. Thank you so much for listening. If you've made it this far, please take the time to rate and review the podcast. It can really help an independent podcast like this one find a bigger audience. If you really liked it, text it to a friend, too. This podcast was created, edited, and produced by me, Ben Castleman. Thank you to Max for being brave. Thank you to Dr. Garland for entertaining this story. Thank you to my other guests, Amon, Eric, Scott, and Danny. And to Ryder Chasen for voicing Terry Reimer. And to Terry Reimer for such a thorough response. This podcast was scored with original music written and composed by Gabe Grand. Cover art by Yeji Kim. The theme song, which you are listening to now, is by Matt and Alex Schumann. Our consulting producer is Shane McKeon. Additional editorial help by Marie Kalaru, Logan Davis, Adam Yates, Jacob Sherman, Annalise Robinson, Max Kim, and Hallie Miller. You can follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at someone'sinhere_podcast. And if you want to reach out, you can find us at someone'sinhere.pod@gmail.com. Thank you again for listening. I'll talk to you next week.